Okay, good evening, Chava. Tonight is, well, we're going to say last night's Omer was 40. I did not have Marriott. We are going to start from Lamatetz Amud Beis on the very bottom. Not on the very bottom, almost towards the bottom, almost all the way to the bottom. It says, the Gemara says Bizman. So we're still talking about Berachas Kahanim. And when the Gemara says, Bizman Shekahanim Berachas, Mahin Hamer. What do the people say while the Kohanim are doing their thing of Berachas Kahanim? Amar Reb Zer, Amar Reb Chizda, Baruch Hu Hashem Alachav Gibarei Koyach, Baruch Hu Hashem Kol Tzelav Mesharsav Oisei V'Tzaynei, Baruch Hu Hashem Kol Masav Kechol Mekaymes V'Meshaltei. Baruch Hashem Hashem. That's one long pasuk, and they break it up. We're going to see in a second if they break it up, it's not one long pasuk, it's three long pasukim. It's Tehillim Kuf Gimel, Chav, and Chav Beis. The Musafei the Shab Semahinam. So we're gonna just Rashi says we just assume that if there's an extra, right, but in Eretz Yisrael they duchen by Musaf as well. No, they duchen every Shachar. So on Shabbat they duchen Musaf as well. So what do they add by Musaf? Amar Asi Shir Hamalais Hine Baruch Hashem Kol Avdei Hashem Sui Dechem Kodesh Baruch Hashem Baruch Hashem Etzi and Shechem Shalayim Hallelujah. So affecting more of the lema, the last part we just said Baruch Hashem Etzi and Shechem Shalayim Hallelujah is not it's not in the same capital as the first two psukim that Shir Malais and Sui Dechem Kodesh. So for the Gemara Belema Yivrach Hashem Etzion, which is the following pasuk that follows those two Shir Malais, Hine Baruch Hashem, and Sui Dechem Kodesh. Let that third pasuk be in flow with the two that we just said. And with the Gemara let it say the third pasuk Yivrach Hashem Etzion that follows immediately after the other two psukim. Amar Yehuda Berei Rav Shimon ben Pazi mitoich. The first two psukim says Shir Malas Hinei Baruch Hu Hashem Kol Avdei Hashem, and then it says Sui Deim Kodesh Hu Baruch Hu Hashem. Those two psukim refer to benching Hashem, and the whole concept of benching Hashem is a little bit interesting, but not for now. And the last pasuk we say Baruch Hashem Etzion Baruch Hashem Etzion Shechem Shalayim, and it wouldn't be appropriate to say Baruch Hashem Etzion that Hashem benches you from Tzion. In other words, with the first two brachas start off with benching Hashem, so we want to continue in that mahalach, even though it means that we have to skip to another capital. I mean, completely different. No, the next capital over. The next capital over. Kuf Lamed Dal Shir Malais, Hine Baruch Hashem, Pasuk Alf and Beis, and then Kuf Lamed Hey is, but it's few psukim in. It's not like it doesn't follow right afterwards. Zot the Gemara weiter. But mincha the tanisa my amri. What do we do by mincha? With mincha that we do another brichas kahanim. And Rashi explains the reason why we don't do. I think Rashi says that the reason why we don't do brichas kahanim the whole year on by mincha is because we are chayshish for shechras. By shechras you're not supposed to eat before davening, so the kavachayim to have tequila. But so we assume that the kahanim are going to be fasted, or at least not drunk, by Shachris, by Musaf. But by Mincha, he already could have a couple of shots maybe. So we don't do, during the whole year, we don't do Birchas Kahana by Mincha. But when it comes to Tainus, where he's not allowed to eat altogether, we're not worried for Shechris, and he could, and we have Birchas Kahana. So what do we add? And then that's one pasuk. Mikveh Yisrael Mashiach ve'es tzara. And then it says again, the next pasuk, Lama siya keger ba'aretz, Lama siya keish nidam kegiber lo yuchal lahishia. All these three psukim refer to Hashem saving us and us. If Hashem saving us, basically. When I say no anabana, I say Hashem should do for us if our aveis are too much, or referring to Hakadosh Baruch Hu saving us. The Ne'ilah, the Yom Kippur, and my Amr. So now the Ne'ilah is another bonus. What do we say? Hine kichen yivarach gavar yirei Hashem yivarach Hashem etzion urei betuv Yerushalayim kol yimechayecha urei banem v'nech l'shar ma'yisrael. These are all brachas talking about Hashem benching us. This is Ne'ilah. This is the last point in Yom Kippur with all the shefas coming down, and it's appropriate then to have additional brachas of Hashem benching us. It just came to mind. It always goes down around before Yom Kippur. The Labat Shova says, the door is closing, but you're on the inside, so don't worry. Heichen Amran. How do they say this? We're going to see the machlekes, we're going to understand the question. Amr Rav Yosef Amar Bein Kol Bracha Bracha in between each bracha, you say these psukim. When they say Hashem, then you say then you say this pasuk. And we're going to see a Vaita Machlekes in how we do that. So again, we have Machlekes whether you say it in response to the bracha, after Amen, or we don't say Amen. This is talking about Stam Brachas. We're not talking about in Beis Midrash. So we're talking about Stam Brachas Kahanim. So you say these psukim in response, Kilu, and or Rabbi Yosef says, no, jumping ahead of myself. Rabbi Yosef says, yeah, v'chol bracha bracha. Rabbi Yosef Amar Raskar is a shame. Bein bracha bein kol bracha. Rabbi Yosef says by this Rosh Hashem. Pligi v'Rab Mari v'Rab Zvid Chad Amar Psuka l'Kava Psuka. In other words, one pasuk at a time for each pasuk. V'chad Amar Akol Psuka Amar Hulukul. Every pasuk, by Yirach Hashem Yishmerecha, I say all three of these psukim, and then Yirach Hashem Panav Elach V'Chaneka, I say all these psukim. And okay, whatever. The last pasuk, Isa Hashem Panav Elach V'Yasach Hashem. That, and then I say the all three psukim again. So again, it's a double machlekes. Do I say it by the shame or in between the bracha, and do I say all three by each bracha, or all three, or each one corresponding to one bracha? So this is talking about taka in the. So we didn't say it exactly, but it seems to be. I think Rashi says that that's what the Gemara is talking about. No. Okay. Well, now he's making a differentiation between the Gvulim, which means throughout the whole Eretz Yisrael, even the Chutzlaritz. Well, Chutzlaritz we don't do it anymore today, but throughout the whole Eretz Yisrael, or in the Beis Midrash. So he says, Amar Enai Mazen again. Amar Chiba Abba Kol Aimim Gvulin Enai Elatay. It's a mistake to say it outside of the Mikdash. Amar Rav Chanina Bar Papa Teda the Mikdash Nami Lami Bayim the Memru. You don't have to even say it in the Beis Midrash. Kolom Yesh Lecha Evet Shemavarch and Oisev Enai Mazen. Is it possible? You don't have to respond. No, of course. When Hashem's benching, of course you're going to pay attention. The other way, even the Gevulin you have to say why, because you don't show appreciation. In other words, by ignoring, by remaining silent, of course you have to say. Of course you have to respond. So you have three machlekes. Either only in Gevulin. He doesn't explain why, because he says only. But he says, I'm sorry, only in the Beis Midrash. He says even Beis Midrash you don't have to, or even in Gevulin you do have to. And again, the difference is between if you have to say in the Beis Midrash also is because it's obvious that if Hashem's giving me a bracha, I'm going to be paying attention. And the other Rambam says you have to answer even in the Beis Midrash, even in the Gevulin, because of course if Eved gets a bracha from his rabbi, of course he has to respond and show appreciation. Amar Ravo. Why do we bring Rav Avo here? I forgot what's the Hamshach of Rav Avo. We had him before. I don't think so. I forgot why we bring Rav Avo. It's a shukman. This Gemara. We'll see in a second. Rav Avo Meresh in the beginning. Havamin Lahu Kivan. Oh, that's why. Okay, he's I forgot about this Gemara. Fine. Rav Avo Meresh Havamin Lahu. I used to say in the beginning. I used to say these psukim. As the Gemara discusses, Kivin the Chazile, the Rabbi Abba, the Min Akud, the Amalahu. Once I saw the Rabbi Abba, the Min Akud, that was from Akud, the northern part of Eretz Yisrael, is Akud. The Loi Amalahu that he did not say this psukim in response to the Berachas Hanim. Ana Nami Loi Aminu. I also stopped saying it, and that's Takad Allah. We don't say it anymore. I mean, yeah. You see this is the Aleph is the I didn't look inside, but the Rambam Machar Paskins over here. That I think even it's not fine. So I have to see it inside, but over here we see it's much we don't pass in like each state of psukim like that we don't. So Rav Avo used to say it, and then he saw that Rav Avin ben from Akud did not say it, so he stopped saying it. But Rav Avo, another member from Rav Avo, interesting story coming up. Meresha in the beginning Hava Amina in Visa Amna in Visanan. I thought I was an Ana. Rav Avo was saying on himself, he thought it was on him. Even the Chazile, the I once saw Rav Abba the Menaku, the Amar Ihu Chad Taima, that he was giving a drasha. And the way they used to give drashas back then was the Rosh Hashiva, let's say, didn't want to strain his voice or didn't project properly or whatever it was, but he would say his drasha to the Matagam, somebody who had a very powerful voice and this is his profession. He said, let's say a pshat in Taisus one way, not in Taisus obviously, but he said a reason for halacha one way. The Amar Amirai, and there's an Amira, it's called an Amira, but that's what it means. It means the guy who repeats his Torah. Chataima, the loy kapit. He said another reason. This Amira, this loudspeaker, essentially, he had his own svara, the loy kapit, and Rabbi Oven didn't make a macham. He didn't stop it. Now they point out the Rishayim, I think the Mashas specifically says, he obviously did not say a bad pshat because you don't have a right to let a bad pshat be said over just because you don't want to make a stink. He said something that was what he thought was at least on par or better than what Rav Oven was originally saying. But to let a false pshat come out entirely, that wouldn't be acceptable. And even if we would have to embarrass somebody or call him out, that would have to be done. So I mean a lot in Visana in Visana. I realize that I'm not an Anav. The Gemara asks, in Visanuse did Ravav? What was the story with Ravav that he originally thought that he wasn't Anav? What was his havim in it? The Amrullah the Debisu, the Amari the Ravav, the Debisu, the Debise the Rabbi Avo. The Ravav was also a Baldashan, and his own Amira, his own Matagim, his own repeater. His wife, the repeater's wife, said to the wife of Abavo, my husband doesn't need your husband. In other words, my husband's just as chashav as your husband. Happens to be your husband's Rosh Hashiva, and my husband's just like the Ibn the guy who just repeats everything, but really he doesn't need it. In other words, my husband's also Tam Chacham. And the reason why the Lashon is bending down and standing up, which means listening to what your husband says, and then repeats it to the Am, he gives him stam covered. Rashi explains that Ravav was very chashav by the Malchus, so there was a lot of times where they gave him covered because he was not Mishnah Melech, but like he was rugged with the government. That was the line that the wife of the Metorgim said to the wife of Ravav. So Ravav's wife came to repeat it to him. Who cares? Why does it bother you? Let Hashem's covered be mizgal. Let it be covered shemayim from him or from me. I don't care who's the Baldashin. He didn't have an issue with it. Now I had a big problem with this Gemara because l'chayra, I don't see anyone asking. I looked in the back of the Mesifta, I looked in the art scroll, I looked everywhere, but I looked where I look, and I don't see anyone mentioning that this is straight up Rechilas. She's repeating something that someone else said about Rabavo. I don't understand the godless. The Gemara is bringing this down as a godless that he didn't listen to Rechilas. This is a this is halach and shulchan aruch. I'm not judging him if he would say it. This is not what I'm just. This is usually when the Gemara says something that an Amar did for godless. You're talking about an Amar, so it means he's going above and beyond. He's not following shulchan aruch and patting himself on the back. So I don't understand this Gemara. I just don't have. I don't have a hezbollah of why this is not basic Rechilas. How she was allowed to.
He didn't hide behind the cover of Torah. He didn't use the excuse of the cover of Torah to stand up for his right.
But how is he allowed to believe it? It's basic Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to believe Rechilas.
No, he's not believing it.
So then,
never believed it. But he didn't get insulted, and he didn't hide behind the cover of Torah to say a chutzpah, cover the Torah. You understand?
I mean, that sounds like a rabbi from that enjoys steak just as much as me. That doesn't sound like an Amira, a goddess of an Amira. That's the way I understood it. I'm not saying that what you're saying is a godless, and I would be impressed if it was a rabbi from the Five Towns. It's not impressive for an Amira. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how I understand the Gemara. It really bothered me, and then no one should even mention it. Really, just to mention it. So Chilas, Ayin Sham, why it's not a problem. Okay, whatever.
And by the way, he's taka from the Five Towns, and he also enjoys steak. I'm just letting you know.
No, I'm saying we're talking about an Amir over here. It's not like some rabbi who he got over his ego and he was able to, and he let the other guy dash him. It's whatever. Okay, I don't have a clear shot on this. I want to ask somebody tomorrow, Hashem, and I'll try to remember to repeat it over here. Umay in the Nusa de Ravo, fine. The Gemara says Vesu. Okay, Vesu, another story that Rabbi Vo's humility. Rabbi Vo imnu the Rabban Imnu Rabban Alei Mimnei Bereisha. He wanted him to be the Rosh Hashiva. Again, not that he wasn't Talmid Chacham Chalila, but he got a lot of perks from being close to the king. Even the Chazil of Abba de Aku, the Nafishle Baal Chayvis, he saw that he had a lot of Chayvis, and the Rosh Hashiva position, even if I don't know what the payroll was over there, but they got a lot of gifts. People were Matthias the Rosh Hashiva. It doesn't say exactly why, but that's what was common. So Amalahu Ikarabba, there's someone bigger than me, and they let him go. They wanted him to give it to Rabbi Avin Ben Aku. What's his name? Rabbi Abba Dimin Aku. Rabbi Abba from Aku, he let him take the position so that he gets all these gifts and he can pay up his chayvus. Rabbi Abba Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Ikle Lahu Asor. They came to the city together to darshan. Rab Abba Darish Begad. So Rabbi Vo, I'm sorry, Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Ikle Rab Avo Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Ikle Lahu Asor. There's two tzaddik ball ear signs all over town. They're coming to give a drasha. It's masha that from later on in the Gemara. It's masha from the Rishonim or the certain commentators that it was around Yom Tov time. You'll see in a second. So Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Avo, Darash Bagad, he was saying Agad is the Gemara. It's like Geshmak Hamais, like Geshmak Gemaras and Tainis Megillah, right? Like these inyanim. Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Darash B'Shmaita, he was learning halacha lamaisa and heavy stuff. Shavku Kuli Amal Rabbi Chia Bar Abba. Everyone left Rabbi Chia Bar Abba Shir Azul L'Gabed Rabbi Vo. Who wants to hear? Who wants to break your head on a tifatisis when after a long day of work you can listen to Geshmak Agad and he's still Makayim? You're Vegisa B'Yom V'Layla. Polish that day, he was very upset that he lost his crowd. Amalei to be Mathiasim, Rabbi Vo told him, I'm going to give you a mashal to what this situation was, like how it played out. The Shnei Bnei Adam Echad Meicher Avanim Taive, so Echad Meicher Mine Sitkis. One, imagine you have two stores next to each other. One is a Breitling store, and one is Amazing Savings. They sell tchotchkes, right? Ami Kaipsin. Who's going to have a longer line out the door? Three guys a week walk into the Breitling store, and the Amazing Savings is busy Yom V'Layla. Ami Kaitzin, Lo Yalzeh Shemaycha Midei Sitkes. Everyone needs tchotchkes. It's very cheap, and everyone needs it, and it goes quickly. But Avanim Taivis, to go get like an expensive watch or to go get a diamond necklace, you have a guy walking once a week and buy something, even a couple times a day. But it's not the same level of everyone walking in and out with stuff. Kol Yoma. So Kol Yoma. The Gemara says that Kol Yoma have a malva. Have a malava, malva Rav Chia Bar Abba Rav Vo Adu Shpize. In other words, they came to the darshan together, and Rav Chia Bar Abba was malava Rav Vo to where he was staying. Mishum Yikar the case because he was close to the Malchus, so he gave him that covered. Hahu Yaima Alve Rav Vo Rav Chia Bar Abba Adu Shpize. Rav Vo walked Rav Chia Bar Abba back to his house to show him covered. And even so, he was not miyasha. He didn't forgive him, or he wasn't menachem. He didn't take what's it called for this. So he said. So they explained a little bit why he wasn't consoled. So a couple of things that I saw inside. One is that he was upset that Rabbi Vo didn't darshan on the halachas because he said it was before Yom Tov, and he's supposed to darshan the Yom Tov. He's darshaning Mises, so he's upset that he didn't teach the halachas. And he said the reason why this mashal is not a geshmak mashal, as a perchan mashal, is the avanim tayvais guy is not upset at the trinket guy because they're not competing markets. It's not like, oh, if there's no Amazing Savings there, then I'm going to go buy myself a Rolex. That's not if I need tchotchkes, I'm going to go buy tchotchkes. If I need a Rolex, I'm going to go buy a Rolex. But over here, he said, if you didn't show up at your Maisalach, I would have a full share. So it's not a good mashal. The tchotchke guy is not taking business away from the Rolex guy. The reason why the Rolex guy is slow, because the Rolex guy is slow. Because that's the model of business that he has, is to sell 3 pieces a week and he covers his rent. But over here he said it's not a good marshal. That's what I saw. And the Sifter brings down some Afrainim or Rishonim, some Pirush on the Gemara. Bisman sheshliach tzibur oimer moedim ha'am mahim. What do we do? What does the Am say when the Sheikh Tzibur says moedim? Now it's interesting to note that moedim is the only part of Shemon Esrei that we get involved. Right, the whole the whole Chazar Shashatz, we're quiet or on our phones, but right, we're supposed to be just be quiet, listening, answering Amen. But all of a sudden, then we got involved, and the answer is I didn't see this over here, but just in general, for saying thank you, you don't send a shliach. So when it comes to saying thank you, then you have to get involved yourself. So what do we say, Taka? Amar Rav moedim nachnu lach, Hashem alekeinu al sha'anu moedim lach. V'shmuel omer alekai kol basar at sha'anu moedim lach. He says from alekai kol basar. And Rashi says each one is adding onto the other one. Simai Amar Yitzreinu Yotzim Bereishis at sha'anu moedim lach. Nahardai Amar from the Nahardai they said Mishmei Rav Simi Barachis v'Hardai Shishim Chagod al Shechisonu Mekamantanu al sha'anu moedim lach. Rachabayakov Messiah Bahachi came to Chayenu V'Skleinu V'Katzenu V'Tesai V'Kulesenu V'Lechatzes Kutchecha V'Lishma Kulkecha V'Lasset Tzenecha V'Shalom Atshana Maidim Lach. I don't know if any of this sounds familiar, but this is Maidim Darabana. Omer Papa Hilchach Nemrinu Lekulu. So we say the whole spiel. We say the whole thing. So from Maidim Menachem Lach all the way down to the bottom, all the way to Atshana Maidim Lach, and that is the whole Maidim Darabana. Omer Yitzchak L'Oilim Tehei Emas Tzibur Alecha. You should fear the tzibur. We're going to see what that means in a second. No, you have a covet at tzibur. Shari kahanim pneim klapi am v'achareim klapi kshrina. They face the kahila and turn their backs to the Aron Kodesh. So you see that it's in a way that the am has a real chashivas and a real reason, you need a real respect. Rav Nachman Amar Me'acha v'Yakom Melech David al Ragel v'Yomer. David got up on his feet and he said to the Am, Shema'uni achai va'ami. Listen to me, brothers and my nation. My brothers and my nation. So, im achai lama ami. If they're brothers, ami. No, achai is equals. My brothers and I, we're all together. I'm the oldest, so I have a little bit more clout, but essentially we're all on the same playing field. Ami, if I'm the king and this is my nation, then I'm here and you're there. So which one is it? Im achai lamali ami, v'im ami lamali achai. Amar Rabbi Lezer, Amar Lam David li Yisrael. Im atem shoymin li achayatam. If you're going to listen to me, I'm going to be with you like brothers. Im lav amiyatam. I'm going to rule you with a stick. Rashi says, I'm sorry, the Gemara says, I'm going to rule you with a stick. Rashi says, Lashon kavush, like you're kavushim tachti, you're kavushim, you're my captives. Now again, so it's the machlekes Rashi and the other Rishonim where you learn the raya from. Rashi says that it's because he called him Achai and he wants to have the relationship with Achai. That's a level of respect. The other Rishonim say that it's because of Yaakov HaMelech David, because David got up to talk to them, and that showed covet. But Rabbanan Amri Mehacha. Rabbanan has another. The Rabbanan have another drush where you see it. The Ein HaKahana Mesharim La'alis B'Sandaleim L'Duchan. The halacha, as we all know, the Kayanim take off their shoes before going up to Duchan. Now, it used to be before we wore socks, they'd go barefoot. Now that it's not appropriate to go barefoot, a Kayan should not go barefoot. V'zu achas mitesh tekana shehizkan Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. This is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did this, I think, in bringing them in Masechet Shoshana. He's been sacking a bunch of things to do in shul. My time, I'm not even sure it has to do with shul. It could just be in general. I don't remember. I didn't see it. My time of lav bishum covered at but must be that why they have to go. Why have to take off the shoes? Because they're going to pick up their hands and the cloak is going to come up and the shoes are going to be caked in mud. It's not going to be covered at tzibur. That's what we assume. He's going to break a strap on the way up. He's going to go back down and he's going to tie his shoe back up. And they say, oh, maybe the reason why he walked off the bima, the dushman, is because he's a ben grusha v'chitzi, he's pasal for kahuna, which is a little bit interesting because we had up on the page on top. That the only time, no, I'm sorry, over here. The only time, no, it is not the top, but it's over here. No, okay, I forgot exactly where it is. Okay, I think it's on Amar Aleph. That's where it's in my head. But over here, sorry, I'm on the base. That it's only if he doesn't do it at all. But if he does it with prakim, it's not a problem. And with prakim is, but it's funny that I guess Rav Ashi doesn't learn like that, and he assumes that if the guy misses one Berachas Kahanim, everyone's going to think he's a ben grusha chalutza, which is not what we learned before. It's not interesting to point out this because maybe he made a bigger shtick by going up and then leaving. I'm not sure what the pshat is with it. Fine. We said that in the base of Mikdash they did one long bracha. Again, not that they only said the first pasuk, but that they said all three psukim without any hafsek. What's the reason for this? The fish ain't amin Mikdash. You don't answer amin in Mikdash. So there's no hafsek. It's just one long bracha. Now Taisus points out that you do make a hafsek because they say Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. Every time that you said Hashem Firish in the Beis Hamikdash or everywhere, but they only say in the Beis Hamikdash, then everyone said Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. So Taisus explains that they said it right away during the Shem. So there wasn't hafsek by the end of the bracha. The end of the bracha, so still considered one long bracha. How do we know? Now, we're not going to answer this question right away. The first part is going to be something else, and then we're going to answer that. So this is I'm not sure which part this goes on. I think from over here. So he says, what does that mean? That when we say Baruch Atah Hashem, let's say Magen Avraham, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Magen Avraham. They say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Min HaOlam Ve'ad HaOlam. Rashi says exact version. Hold on. The Sefer as Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael Min HaOlam Ve'ad HaOlam. The Magen Avraham. Mason, each bracha, that was the bracha. It wasn't Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. It was Min HaOlam Ve'ad HaOlam. How do we know that we don't say Amen, but we do a whole Tehillah? Okay, that's what it is. Is to teach you that Minayin Sha'al Brachu. Okay, I'm sorry. Tells me that I don't say Amen. I say Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. How do I know that it's on every single bracha? In other words, I don't just say at the end of davening, Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. I say after every bracha, Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. I don't say Amen. But there's no Amen. In the Maaseh, there's no Amen there. So we don't say Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad at the end of the parsha of the pasuk of Kahanim of the Berachas Kahanim because there's no bracha there. It's a bracha without a baruch. So only in a bracha do I say Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. That's how I understood the Gemara. It's a little bit. Like the lashon of the Gemara, it took me a few minutes just to read it again and again to figure out what the Gemara is saying. Even with the article and the Mesivta, I still couldn't figure it out. The lashon is like a little bit sussum to me. At least I couldn't, whatever. But that's how I understood it. That at the end of the bracha, you don't say Amen, and you don't say anything when there's no bracha. So is not it doesn't start with the baruch. So I just say Baruch Shem Kohen Mechusel Alam Vad. I don't say anything. Because there's no amens in the Beis Hamikdash and there's no baruch. Fine. Zok the Mishnah. Birchas Kain Gadol Keitza. What is the story with Birchas Kain Gadol? What is it? Chazan HaKnesses, the guy in charge, the shamus, the guy who's in charge of cleaning up and putting on the coats and setting the AC. That guy. Noito Sefer Torah. He takes out the Sefer Torah from the Aron Kodesh and also like the Rosh HaKnesses. He gives it to the Rosh HaKnesses. Who the Rosh HaKnesses? He's the guy who decides. Rashi says who goes up, who gets the aliyas, who davens Ramid. Who gets Navi, who gets Mafter. The Rosh HaKnesses listens to the Skan, and the Rosh HaKnesses gives to the Skan HaKayin. The Kayin is the Kayin who's on standby, basically, because in case during Yom Kippur, this is talking about Yom Kippur. I don't know if I said that before, but this verse Kayin Gadol is talking about during Yom Kippur. At the end of Yom Kippur, at the end of that Yom Kippur, this process takes place. So the Shamas gives it to the Gabba. The Gabba gives it to the Skan HaKayin, which is basically just a Kayin standby. That if Chalila, the Kain Gadol becomes a Balkari in the middle of the day or during the night usually, then the Skan steps in and he's fully tar and he's separated and he's ready to go. They have to make him special clothes. Again, everything is custom tailored over there in the Beis Hamikdash. So they had everything was you had to have like a real standby to fill in. You can't just start looking for somebody afterwards. You have to manage prep for it. So the Skan gives it to the Kain Gadol. Where are we? The Skan knows to the Kain Gadol. The Kain Gadol, Aymer Makabel. The Kain Gadol stands up in his Makabel. It's V'Kaira Achrimais. He lanes the Pasha Achrimais, which deals with the avoida of the Beis Hamikdash, and that is the beginning of Achrimais. From the beginning of Achrimais, I don't know how far it goes, but I think the whole capital Tez Zayin. Whatever, this is the whole avoida of the Beis Hamikdash, the whole avoida of Yom Kippur. Yeah, the whole parak Zayin. The Ach Ba'aser, and then he lanes also. The Ach Ba'aser is in Vayikra right afterwards. Right, so he rolls it a little bit from parak Zayin to parak Chav Gimel, which talks about the idea that Yom Kippur is mechaper, and then he's megadol the Sefer Torah. He rolls up the Sefer Torah, and he puts it on his lap. V'omer more than what's written here, more than what I just read to you is written here, and then he continues to read another parsha of Yom Kippur, which talks about the carbon. They have to bring in Yom Kippur, the karbanos. They have to bring in Yom Kippur. Shebechomesh Pekudim, that's in Bamidbar. Al Peh, he reads by heart, and he makes afterwards Shemaina brachas. Which brachas? Al Torah, which is the regular bracha we make after we finish an aliyah. The ala vaida, which is ritzei, ala haida, which is moedin, ala mechilin sa'avain, which is ashebacha banu, which ends off in mechilin sa'avain, ala mikdash, ala yisrael, ala kahanim, ala yishlayim, ala shar tefillah, and all these other brachas. Rashi goes through them all. The end of the bracha is Mikdash. The end of the bracha is Baruch Asher Bacha the Mikdash. Al Yisrael Mispal Al Yisrael v'Chleisim Baruch Habayich Ba'am Yisrael. V'chein Yerushalayim U'Masakta Saitu Yishamis B'Farish. The Rashi doesn't bring it down. He says the Gemara the Saitu in the Yerushalmi Saitu says what bracha it is. B'Shar Tefillah the Gemara Farish. The Gemara is going to explain what B'Shar Tefillah means. Zog the Gemara weiter. So we see from here, Shmami knows like the Gemara that Cholkin covered the time b'Makam Maharab. You see that you give the Skana Kayin covered, the Rosh Hakol covered, you give all these guys covered in front of the Kohen Gadol. You see that you're able to give covered to a Talmud in front of a Rav. Everything the whole point is to pass it up and pass it up and pass it up to show how many people we have to reach to get to the Kohen Gadol. That it was like the whole hishtalshalis to get to the Kohen Gadol. It's all for his covered. It's not to be covered to the Gabe and to the Shamas and to the Sky. The Kohen Gadol Oymed and Mekabel. But the Gemara Oymed, if you tell me that he has to stand, Mechlal the Yoshevu, Mechlal that he was sitting, can't stand without having been sitting. We learned Ein Yeshiva Ba'Azara El Malchus Beis David B'Vad. The only people who are allowed to sit in the Azara it's Malchus Beis David. Rashi explains because Hashem wants to show that they have a Malchus Shlemus. That means He's allowing them even in His kingdom they're allowed to sit. They have complete Shlemus. They have complete Malchus. He's saying, "Mi Anochi, who am I, and who's my house?" But you see that he sat in front of Hashem. We're going to have a machlekes in 2 seconds where the laning was. So Rav Chisda explains the machlekes that it's be'ezus nashim, not in the Azara. So how can I be'ezus nashim? And so be'ezus nashim, the Kohen Gadol is allowed to sit. Meisvei v'heichen kairin by ba'azara. Heichen kairin by ba'azara. We lane it in the Azara. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov amar b'harabayis in the harabayis. Shenema because it says by Shenema by Yikra by the Pnei Arachai v'Asher l'Pnei Ashar Hamayim. It says by Ezra he did this public reading on the harabayis in the plaza over there. Amar Rav Chisda be'ezras nashim. It means over there be'ezras nashim. So what's this meisei? The meisei is the Chara asking on. I'm not really sure. What's the meisei? What are we asking? We just answered that it's hold on. I'm not sure what I don't have this meisei. Hold on. Okay, I have to look into that again tomorrow. I forgot what's the meisei. What are we asking on? Give me 1 second. Oh, they take out the words meisei. Okay, that makes sense. The Gemara asks. Okay, it's not a kash on anything because there's nothing. The flow doesn't make sense. They take out there's a gas over here. They take out the word meisei. Fine, but the kids are just asking. The Gemara is discussing where do they lane. You just told me that they lane. Where are they laning? So the machlekes and Rav Chisda's explaining the Tanakama that says ba'azara, not in the Azara, mamish in the Ezras Nashim. The Ezras Nashim doesn't have the same kedusha, and even a kohen is allowed to sit. Not even, but I'm saying a kohen is allowed to sit in the Azara. We're going to call it quits over here. And we will continue tomorrow night, Bez Hashem. Again, we're still one whole block behind, but with Hashem's help, we're going to finish before Shavuos, Bez Hashem. Shkreich everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, Mo.